Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Lorna and I'm a planning and evolutions engineer. And as a planning and evolutions engineer, I touch on various aspects of IT. So this is a YouTube channel where we share IT information in general, information that we feel like is useful for you in your IT career. So if you're new, karibu sana. Remember to check on my previous videos. Remember to like, to comment, and to share as much as possible. Kindly also subscribe to this YouTube channel because we want to grow as much as possible. We want to reach as many people as possible. So subscribe, like the videos, and share as much as possible to your friends in the IT field. So today, guys, I want us to talk about which cloud certification can you start with, because so many things can be confusing out there, especially if you're coming out of campus and you're not sure which cloud certification to start with. Probably you want to get yourself in the cloud environment, but you're not sure which certification to start with. So for such a person, it can really be confusing. I was confused at one point in time, but at least I got somewhere to start with, and right now I can say that I'm comfortable in knowing where to go next. So if you're new to the field, if you're coming out of campus, if you haven't worked yet, you just trying to find your way into the industry, and you want to get yourself in the cloud, I would advise you to start with something like AWS. Yeah, because starting with the AWS definitely will get you, to get the basics of what cloud is all about. Because remember, guys, cloud environments are the same. They have the same concept. They have the concept of compute, storage, and networking. So the moment you understand those three building blocks of a cloud environment, you can actually do any certification on any other cloud provider. So I feel like starting with AWS would give you like a base of knowing what cloud is all about. And the reason why I'm also saying AWS is because most companies use AWS. So the moment you start doing AWS, you might actually get lucky to get a job in a company that is using AWS, because so many companies out here use AWS. And that's what I'm saying. If you're starting, if you're new, if you're not sure where to start from, then I suggest that you start with AWS. So many companies are using them out there. And the moment you understand AWS, you might find yourself, getting a job in a company that is using AWS. I'm not saying those other cloud service providers are not being used, but I'm saying I find that most companies are actually using AWS, and you can actually get yourself starting with AWS so that you don't get confused. Because you can also start with Azure, you can start with Google, but I'm encouraging someone to start with AWS, because also another thing about AWS is that you find a lot of content available almost everywhere. When you go to YouTube, you find a lot of content about AWS cloud. When you Google anything about AWS, you actually find very, very nice documentation about AWS products. And I feel like for someone who's getting to start with knowing what cloud is all about, AWS is one best certification to start with. From there, you can actually go to the rest of the cloud providers if you want to, because remember, you already have the concept. As I said again, the concept is the same. The concept of compute, the concept of storage, the concept of networking is the same. So you'll actually be able to carry the knowledge that you got from learning AWS to learning another cloud service provider. So if you're totally new, you're still confused on where to start from, I suggest that you start with AWS. If you go to YouTube, for example, remember I talked about the certifications that you can do when you're learning AWS, and one of the certifications that you can start with is what we call AWS Cloud Practitioner. So if you go to YouTube, you can actually find a whole video on AWS Cloud Practitioner, like a 3-hour video on that, and you can actually learn everything from YouTube. So that's why I feel like starting with AWS is actually a bit easier because of the availability of the content in YouTube, in Google, wherever, the documentations, which are really, really nice. So if you're new, very, very new, start with AWS and start now. Stop postponing, stop, getting confused every now and then on where to start from. Start with AWS and you can actually pick your way from there, because the concept is the same. I can repeat this so many times. The concept is the same. So the moment you understand AWS, you can actually find it easy working on another cloud service provider like Azure or Google. You know. So another thing about AWS is because as I said, the content is quite available out there, and sometimes when you want to learn to do a certification, you might actually be forced to purchase content for you to study, and also to do to prepare yourself to do the exams. So I feel like with AWS, with the available content in YouTube and the documentations when you search from Google, you can actually learn a lot without you purchasing the learning content online, because some of them can really, really be expensive. And so if you want to just get started to learn, start from what is available for you. Go to YouTube, search about, if you're very new, search about that certification which I'm talking about. It's called AWS Cloud Practitioner. Learn the concept, learn everything, get to know everything. If you want to Google something to get to know more about it, go to AWS website, and you'll get a lot of documentation about the different products that you want to learn about. So in about, like, you can give yourself like 3 months, you'll be able to have, and you have like a lot of knowledge about getting started with AWS, especially by going through those videos in YouTube. From there, now you can actually decide if you want to go to a higher certification in AWS, or maybe you want to do something, maybe a different cloud provider. But the concept, at least at this point, you have the basic concept. You have the basic understanding of what cloud is all about. You have the basic understanding of what products the basic products that are being used in any cloud environment. So from there, now you can maybe decide that you want to go to a higher certification in AWS, or maybe you want to branch to another cloud provider. But for someone who is really new, start with AWS. The content is always available. It's only about you to get flexible, to be ready to start, because there is no proper time for you. You can't wait for anything to say, let me wait for next year to start learning. Learning can actually kick off any time of your life. And I feel like if you have that idea that you want to learn about cloud, start now. Start right now. In fact, start right now. Go to Google, search about AWS Cloud Practitioner, and start learning from there. It's a whole video of about 3 hours. And I can tell you guys, I used that video to learn, and I actually got a lot of information about what AWS is all about. And by the time I was ready to do a certification, I even felt like I cannot do a certification for practitioner, because at that point I felt like I had understood everything, and I was even ready to learn a higher certification in AWS, and that's why I decided to do AWS Solutions Architect. So for you, just getting to know the concept first before you are ready to do the exam, it's really, really important, because at this point you may not be having the money to pay for a voucher for you to do the exam, but because you have the available content that you can start learning with, it's really important that you start, so that maybe in the next maybe 5 months, maybe you have the money to pay for the voucher. Then it will be easy for you to just maybe take a month to remind yourself of the concepts that you've learned so far, and also prepare for that certification within a month or so. So get started right now. Don't postpone anymore. Don't, because the more you postpone, the more you actually get confused, because you'll meet people telling you, start with this, start with this, start with that. So I feel like if you have, something, if you can have a certain urge to start with learning cloud, start right now and start with AWS Cloud Services. That is, if you're new and you don't have like a clear path of where you want to go as far as cloud is concerned, then start with AWS. You'll grow from there. I can assure you, you'll grow from there, because that's where I started from. I didn't know which cloud provider I wanted to do a certification for. I didn't know which company I wanted to probably work for. But I said, what, let me get started with learning what cloud is all about, and I can start with the concepts of AWS. And with that, right now, I can tell you that from what I learned at that particular time to where I am right now, I know what Azure is all about. I know what Google is all about, because as I said, the concept is the same. It's only need you to get started with something. You can't start with AWS and Azure and Google at the same time. You'll actually be confused. You'll actually even get tired. You might get discouraged that these things are so many. But when you pick one to start with, it will be a good thing for you, because as you move forward, you'll actually get to understand that these things are actually the same. It's only maybe the naming from one cloud provider to another that kind of differ, but the concepts are actually the same. So get started somewhere, and get started with something like AWS, and then you can improve yourself from there. And for this new person who is starting to learn for the first time afresh, make sure that as you learn, if you can do like a small project, that will even be better for you, because you're not learning just to learn. You're learning because you want to maybe get a job out there. So as you learn, try as much as possible to do something like a project that will actually give you like something like a hands-on experience of how you've understood the various products in that particular cloud environment you're learning. Because if you go for an interview and you just say you're doing your theory, that provider will actually want to see, have you and as much as you're doing your theory, have you like understood how these products work? So if you pick a small project, and you remember from my previous videos, I talked about a project for like a web application, a small web application project. So if you do like a web application in AWS, you can actually get to understand so many things from just doing that that small project. Because if you do a web application project, you'll understand what an instance is. That's an EC2 when it comes to AWS. You'll understand what load balancing is if you want to load balance your application. You'll understand what a VPC is. You'll understand what security groups are. You'll understand what load balancing, I think I've said load balancing. You'll understand probably what Route 53 is when you want to use, any form of DNS. And so that particular one project can actually expose you to so many things that you can actually talk to your potential employer about, that you have this small project. As much as you're learning, you've done this small project which have actually made you to understand how those products work. So if you're a new learner, learn as much as possible. Watch those videos from YouTube or wherever you're watching from, or learning directly from documentations online, and sign up for the AWS account and make sure that you're practicing those various products to make you understand as much as possible. And then from there, guys, you can actually, as I said, from you learning those basics of AWS, you can actually learn any other cloud provider, because the concepts are the same. For someone who is already working, probably you want to transition to cloud, and you're working in a certain company and you're saying you want to transition to work in the cloud department. Of course, at that particular time, you understand your company, you understand which cloud provider they're using, and that can actually make you know which cloud provider you're going to learn at that particular time. If your company is using Azure, then I can say that Azure is something that you're going to learn at that particular time, because there's something clear that you want to get yourself into. You want to get into the cloud department within your company, and your company is using a specific cloud provider. So that's where you learn from. You want to maybe get a certification and prove to your company that you can actually move to that particular department, because this is what you know so far. And also, if you're eyeing a certain company, maybe you haven't worked yet, maybe you're still you're just out of campus and you're eyeing a certain company, maybe you're eyeing to work with AWS, so definitely you want to learn AWS. Maybe you're eyeing to work with Azure, so definitely then you want to start learning Azure. If you're eyeing to work with Google, then definitely you start learning Google. Or maybe a company that's used a specific service provider. So maybe you know this company and you're saying, you know what, in future I'd really like to work for this company. So maybe you want to try and find out which cloud service provider that company is using, and then that's when you want to start learning. So don't get yourself confused. Just focus on one thing. As I said, the concepts are the same. Don't be running from AWS to Azure to Google at the same time, because you can easily become so confused and discouraged. So pick one, get the concepts, learn the products, and get to apply the concepts when you want to learn another cloud service provider. And also, if you're this active learner, you're learning every now and then, for you to keep your knowledge up, you can actually start documenting your the concepts that you've learned. There are different ways that you can actually start documenting. For example, you can actually maybe start a blog, your IT blog, and start documenting everything that you learn. That way you'll still be upskilling, you'll still be making yourself not forget the content that you're learning, and at the same time you're helping someone out there to maybe read your blog and also maybe understand the different concepts that you've learned. So one way of documenting is writing a blog. Just come up with a small blog, document as much as possible. For example, if you did that small application in Amazon web services in AWS, and you want to document, you can actually start giving the actual steps that you did to come up with that web application in AWS. And so from there, you have your documentation. You can always refer to it. At the same time, when you teach someone, you also making sure that you don't forget what you have. So it's a very good way of keeping your content fresh. Keeping your knowledge afresh, and at the same time sharing your content for someone out there to also benefit from. You can also start like a YouTube channel like myself. I started my YouTube channel recently, and one of the reasons that I started this YouTube channel is to share the information that I have with others, and at the same time document my ideas, because I always go back to my videos, I watch them, and I learn something or two, because with the time you maybe forget some of these things, but when you have like a documentation through videos or through a blog, then I feel like it's something really, really nice for you to be able to share the information with other people, and at the same time keep the information within yourself. So guys, that is it. So in my summary, I can say that if you're very, very fresh in the field, you're coming out for the first time and you don't know where to start from, start with AWS. Reason being, so many companies use AWS and there's a lot of available content about AWS out there, especially from YouTube and from documentations from the AWS website. So I can recommend you to start from there. But if you already have a clear path of where to follow, you want to work for a certain company, then that will be easier because you want to know what that company is using, which cloud services they're using, and you can actually start from there. Another thing that I said is don't wait. There is no right time for you to start. Start right now. Start from somewhere. Don't confuse yourself. Don't run from one cloud service provider to another if you're starting. Start with the one, get the concept, and it is the same. You can easily apply to another cloud provider. So don't confuse yourself. Another thing is don't try to learn everything, because there's so many things that, a cloud provider offers, but you can't learn everything at the same time. So get the basics first of all. Get to know what the building blocks of cloud environment, which I said it's cloud compute, it is networking and storage. When you get those basics, then build yourself slowly by slowly. Don't try to confuse yourself with a lot of products, because at the end of the day, you won't even be using all those products. The company that you will be working for will be using specific services. So if you might actually waste your time and get yourself confused and discouraged by learning so many things which might not apply in future. So what I can say is that when you're starting, kindly focus on the basic concepts, things that that are mostly used out there. For example, storage. When it comes to AWS, storage is a big deal. Most people store their information in the AWS. They use it as a backup or for archiving. Things like databases, things like networking, things to do with the VPC. So this is some of the very basic things that are being used mostly out there that you can learn. So don't try to confuse yourself with so many concepts. Get the basics, and then from there you can actually build yourself slowly by slowly. And when you do that particular project, do a project that is covering on the basic products, not everything. Not everything that can actually make you confused and you give up, because the moment you get confused, you can easily give up. And I don't want you to give up, because we're not giving others at this point. You want to learn as much as possible. So that's what I'm saying. Pick something specific. Pick one cloud to start with, which in this case I'm recommending AWS. From there, pick specific things to learn, the most basic things to learn in AWS. There's so many products and I don't want you to get confused. So from there, then you can build yourself slowly by slowly. Remember, it's important to document. You can document through a blog. It's not hard to get a blog actually. So you can, visit any hosting company and start writing your blog slowly by slowly. Don't write for the sake of, chasing for money. Just write because you want to document something nice. And slowly by slowly, your blog will grow, your YouTube channel will grow, and at least you'll be helping people with what you're sharing. At the same time, you'll be documenting your information that you can always refer back to. So that's it, guys. If you have any question, kindly put it in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know where you started from. If you're already in the cloud environment, where did you start from? Kindly share your story in the comment section. Encourage somebody out there to get started, and also give your views on how you went about it and how you finally got to where you are at the moment. So let's share as much as possible. Let's help one another. And guys, share this video as much as possible. And if this content is good for you, kindly remember to like the video as you watch, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Until next time, bye. I'll see you in the next one.